welcome back. Please excuse the lack of background, or I'm trying to figure out the setup still. But honestly, as long as we have the haunted infestation with us, that's all we need, right? As long as we have their spirit of evil and malice and ill will with us, we're good. Okay, guys. Today's movie is all shades of messed up and debauched and just completely effed up. But I watched it anyway, of course. And not only is it dark figuratively, it's also been filmed in black and white, despite being from 1998. Almost the year 2000, guys. I guess they used the black and white for stylistic choices. So accordingly, I was gonna have my video in black and white too, but how can you see Leroy's rosy, sweet little cheeks if it's black and white? Anywho, without further ado, buckle up and strap in because, this one's just, it's gross. And not in the blood and guts type of way, just more so in the way of a debauched, twisted human psyche. As you're about to see. This hellacious story begins with our main character, Trevor, a dude who works as a waiter and also happens to live in an impoverished slum of sorts. No offense, Trevor. But most notably, Trevor is, I guess, terrified of women. And he cannot interact with them, his mind explodes, everything implodes in his head. Trevor ain't no ladies' man. Let's just put it that way. One day, Trevor gets a knock on his door, and it's his friend, acquaintance-ish, Lon. And to put it frankly, Lon is pretty much just a washed-up loser with nowhere to live, with a crippling drug addiction. Exactly the type of person you want to show up at your doorstep. Unsurprisingly, Lon was just kicked out of the last person's house he was staying in, and now his couch-surfing tendencies have brought him to Trevor's humble abode. His humble abode. What an absolute honor for Trevor. And after Lon starts making himself right at home on Trevor's couch, Trevor learns from Lon's former roommate, Dennis also being a friend of Trevor's, that Lon was kicked to the curb for stealing from his drug stash. His own personal drug stash. How dare Lon. So we've got a stellar group of people all around. Off the bat, Lon is an entitled, mooching freeloader, of course. So Trevor lays down an ultimatum. Lon can start helping around the house, or he can get the hell out. He can go sleep on the sidewalk. Which is kind of fair, because that's the least Lon could do, just help out a little bit. And while it's a bit of a struggle to get Lon to reciprocate that and to cooperate, Lon eventually does, because that's the least he can do. Pull a little ounce of his weight, right? And Lon starts helping out and cleaning around the house. Trevor even bringing him home an apron to wear while doing so that has the name Dorothy on it. Dorothy. Keep that in the chrome dome for later. One evening, after Trevor has finished his shift, and avoided speaking to any woman as much as humanly possible, he and Lon settle down in front of the TV to watch some heartwarming, wholesome, adult content, and to get a little high. Woo. Especially Lon. But as they're sitting there together and watching it, Trevor's eyes start drifting away from the TV and over to Lon. Trevor taking special interest in Lon's earring. Ooh. And it's definitely weird between them and to Lon, but they're both out of it and high enough to just brush it off and forget about it. For now. One day, as Trevor and Lon are kind of just vibing and playing darts, Lon, in his douche-like antagonistic nature, starts tossing darts at Trevor. And those darts are sharp as hell, by the way. So of course that pisses Trevor off, and he responds by tackling Lon down onto the bed. Except Trevor gets a little too into the heated tussle of sorts, and starts smooching Lon on the lips. What? That came out of left field, damn. And of course Lon is like, what the hell is going on, and tries to fight Trevor off. And after a fairly violent struggle, Lon manages to break away and run off, running away from Trevor's house altogether. Because yeah, I would too, what the hell. Because Lon's part of the rent was about to be paid in an alternative way, it seems. What? And of course, Lon is pretty stunned by this and taken aback and probably a little freaked out, but Lon really has no one to call. I guess just another event for the vault. Try as Trevor might, and he actually sometimes does try, he just cannot handle any semblance of female encounter. So I guess Lon just seemed like the next best thing in that moment. Later that very same evening, after a pretty violent, volatile encounter with a prostitute and her pimp, yet another woman interaction that Trevor failed miserably at, Trevor returns to his quaint little home to find Lon passed out on his doorstep. And in jean shorts, of all things. And right when Trevor's about to leave the drug-dazed vagrant to his drug-induced blaze, he instead decides to take a little pity on him, I guess, and let him come back inside. And I don't know if that's the best idea, Lon, given recent, very recent events. By the way, shirt check! A message from our king. A message I feel like could apply to this movie as well. And unsurprisingly, things are a tad uncomfy, awkward, and tense between them, or especially on Lon's part, as Trevor's just kind of casually sitting there and watching the TV. Like nothing at all happened. Nothing. And a little more tension is added when Lon says that he's leaving the next day. He's leaving Trevor's house and he's not coming back. But Trevor doesn't seem affected by that at all. In fact, his only response as he continues staring at the TV is, "Oh, that's too bad, Dorothy." When the next day rolls around, a fuming Dennis shows up at Trevor's door, livid that Lon apparently broke back into his place the night before, after Lon ran away from Trevor's house after the kiss incident, and stole more from Dennis's drug stash. I guess hence why Lon was passed out at Trevor's door. And not only did Lon steal more of Dennis's drugs, he also stole his gun. But for some reason, Trevor covers for Lon, insisting that he doesn't know where Lon went. He's not here. He left after a massive fight yesterday. He's definitely not inside the house, asleep on my couch as we speak. Of course not. So, after Dennis storms off, Trevor heads back inside to an unsettled, upset Lon, because apparently Trevor found and then hid the stash that Lon stole from Dennis. Not to mention that Lon's feathers are still ruffled from that kiss. That kiss. That came out of left field. But given how dependent Lon has become on his drug addiction, since Trevor has hold of the stash, he now has hold of all the bargaining chips, with the promise of returning the stash bit by bit, giving him a syringe full here and there. Trevor makes Lon start working for it, getting him to scrub and clean and deep clean his dirty, nasty-ass house in return for getting some of those drugs back, and little bit by little bit. Even making Lon wear that frilly little Dorothy apron the whole time while he's cleaning. And of course, because Lon is so desperate to get any tiny little fix, he complies and entirely obeys Trevor. So now Trevor's got his own cute little house made. Probably the first time this house has ever been actually cleaned. At least it looks that way. And since Lon is the only one actually upkeeping and cleaning the house at this point, or ever, he's able to safely stow away the gun he stole from Dennis under the toilet tank. Maybe just in case Trevor decides to fling them into another smooching extravaganza. Which they still haven't fully talked about. I think Lon does not want to speak about it. Not gonna lie, damn. Leroy's that old that his hip's giving out. Anyway, as I was saying, I don't know anything about drugs, and I don't care to, I don't want to, I'm good. So I'm trying to use the, proper terminologies here, but I don't know them, so here we are. Anywho, while Trevor is off at work one day, at the waiter job that he hates so much and that pays so little, don't you just love the service industry? Love it. Lon invites over a girl named Vicky, whom he met at the laundromat while he was doing Trevor's washing, because, he does all Trevor's chores. Lon treating the house as if it's his own, and he can do what the hell he wants. They even go about setting up an actual tent in Trevor's front room. But I guess Lon kinda pays his share in rent by cleaning and the upkeep, right? So it's kinda his place, but not really. Anywho, when Trevor gets home from his long, soul-crushing waiter shift, he ain't too pleased to discover the salacious scene inside, and that Lon brought an actual girl over into Trevor's house. A girl. A woman. Women are scary. Okay? Okay, Lon? How dare Lon bring an actual woman, human being, into Trevor's house? But honestly, if I came home to that kind of situation, I would be pissed too. If I just worked a long shift at a job I hate, I wouldn't feel like being social either. Hell, I wouldn't be social if I was just fully rejuvenated either, so I can kinda understand where Trevor's coming from, perhaps. But this is Lon's house too now, apparently to Lon. The next day, Trevor isn't all too happy with Lon, but Lon also isn't feeling too happy with Trevor, because Lon's feeling pretty under the weather from being in a state of withdrawal, because Trevor's run out of his supply, and he had to wait till payday to get more, so Lon is feeling it. But to Lon's relief, Trevor returns home from work that day with a gift for him. To Lon's excitement and relief, the gift actually does contain a dosage of his fix, a dosage of his drug of choice. But the gift also contains something else, something a little more. A dress. For Lon. From Trevor. And though Lon is straight away taken aback and definitely weirded out, Trevor calmly, nonchalantly explains to Lon that he wants him to wear the dress for him that night. And that he wants him to be Dorothy. Hello? What? Something is a little screwy in Trevor's chrome dome. Lon needs to get the hell out of there. He needs to check himself before he Shreks himself, as the king would say. Not that that's a quote from the Shrek movie, but it should be. When Lon realizes that Trevor is entirely serious, he of course gets majorly creeped out. But in order to continue earning those drug runs and drug fixes, Lon has to do what Trevor says. And he does so. Even as deeply as it obviously disturbs him and irks him out. Anything for that next syringe and, I guess, a roof over his head. So Lon begrudgingly slips into the dress. Ooh. And it fits like a glove. And though Lon looks absolutely broken up about it, that he had to comply to this level, to this extent, Trevor just tells him how beautiful he looks. And that he's such a pretty girl. Lighten up, Dorothy. Gosh. Then, to Lon's absolute horror, Trevor starts kissing him. Macking him right on the lips. Full force. Pushing Lon within an inch of his breaking point. Given that Trevor is now Lon's only source for drugs and the only source of a roof over his head, Lon's pretty much beholden to Trevor's every wish and command. He's got him right under his thumb. Including Lon having to conform and obey Trevor's every little alteration to make Lon appear more feminine. Makeup, wardrobe, wigs, and all. Even including lingerie and painted nails. But Lon goes with it, for the sake of his fix and for his shelter. He feels like he has to. He's pretty stuck in this situation. But now would be a fantastic time to even just flat out cold turkey his drug addiction. As insanely horrible as that would be for him and all the withdrawals and whatnot. Withdrawals and all that come with that, they seem better than subjecting yourself to this, right? I don't know. It doesn't feel worth it. And plus, Trevor's not the one source on planet Earth for drugs anyway. I'm sure if Lon searched hard enough, he could find more, obviously, so maybe go that route. This ain't worth it, Lon. Ain't worth it. So now, Lon has to live as a full-fledged girl in Trevor's house. The Dorothy of Trevor's dreams. The only woman that Trevor can actually function around and experience a relationship with. And Trevor's delusions get stronger by the day. As does Lon's buried resentment, because now he's become a bona fide housewife. Anything for a fix. Anything. Then again, this coming from a person who's never even tried drugs, so I obviously don't understand what the actual addiction would be like, so color me ignorant, but this still doesn't feel worth it. Trevor even calls home while at work to ask Lon or Dorothy what he's wearing. And because, Lon doesn't want to dress that way normally and only dresses as a girl when Trevor is home, Lon just lies and tells Trevor what he wants to hear, that he's fully decked out and wearing a little black dress and all the fixings, because Lon figures that Trevor won't be home for several hours. But, of course, Trevor heads home straight after the call ends, and catches Lon red-handed. And he ain't too happy about it. He was just testing Lon, and Lon failed. And if Trevor weren't already tripping in his piss, he's slipping and sliding in it when the phone rings right then and there, and it's Vicky. Lon's girl. So right then and there on the line, Trevor tells her that, "Sorry, Vicky, Lon is dead." Bing. In his subsequent rage, Trevor storms around the house, picking up every piece of Lon's clothing, his dude clothing, and throws them all in a bathtub and starts burning them. Lon pleading with Trevor the whole time, like, "Stop, those are my only clothes, Trevor." But Trevor don't care. He wants all those clothes obliterated. Even the very clothes from Lon's back. So now Lon's only option is to wear the woman clothes. Trevor demanding that he puts them on right then and there, because now that Trevor's tantrum has settled a bit, he wants to take his beautiful girlfriend out for a drink and a night on the town. That seems like a very stable psyche. Top notch. With no other outfit options at this point, Lon grudgingly gets all girlied up, woo, and they head out for a night on the town. Such a cute, functional couple. But that fun, definitely not coerced, night out on the town gets nipped in the bud when they get confronted for ID at the clubhouse? Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. When they get confronted for ID at the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse door by the bouncer, and when Lon starts getting mocked and ridiculed, resulting in a full-out brawl where they both get their asses handed to them on a silver platter. Both battered and bruised up, they go home. Lon looking more downcast, disheartened, and depressed than when they left the house. Because Lon is in his own personal hell. He's between his own personal rock and a hard place, stuck in this horrible situation that he feels like he cannot get out from. Absolutely buried in the downcast dumps, Lon tells Trevor that he's not into dudes. He doesn't want to do this, he's not into dudes. And Lon tells Trevor that multiple times before Trevor pushes him back on the bed and plants a big ol' smooch on his lips before saying, "Neither am I." And in the twisted state of Trevor's psyche, his twisted brain, that may absolutely seem like the truth to him, given how hellaciously he's deluded himself into believing that Lon is actually now Dorothy, his beautiful live-in girlfriend. The only girl he can interact with without his brain imploding. So what is this, Incel the movie? Lon, get the hell out of there ASAP. Not worth it whatsoever. Run, don't walk. Run, Lon. Especially given what happens next. Who thought of this movie, by the way? Who? I feel like I say that with every movie I watch here, but this movie is just so scummy and over the top and gross. Like, then again, so are a lot of the movies I cover, so yay, fun times. And at this point in the movie, this is where the suffering intensifies. Because the very next day, Trevor heads on over to the local library to do some research. And Eden, what research, you may be asking? I don't think you want the answer, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway. He's researching human physiology and estrogen tablets, of course. As if this movie weren't degenerate and depraved enough. And since Trevor has Dennis as his handy-dandy drug dealer and supplier, and Dennis has all these connections, he's able to get those same Premarin estrogen pills under the table pretty easily. And because Trevor is a sneaky little bugger, it's just as easy for him to sneak those crushed-up pills into Lon's syringes. I mean, Trevor's even bold enough to actually offer the pill itself in full pill form to Lon, under the guise of it being a vitamin. And Lon just kind of believes him and takes it. Given the context, given the situation, Lon, okay. Life then goes on as normal for the picture-perfect couple. Trevor continuing to slave away at his soul-crushing job, while Dorothy stays home cleaning and obeying, doing anything to earn the next fix, which I feel bad for, honestly. While Trevor secretly continues dosing Lon with those Premarin hormone pills, aka vitamins. Just vitamins, nothing more. Sometime later, Lon gets a letter from his brother, who's in prison, and thereafter wants to go and visit him. And while Trevor, who is controlling and demanding and just awful in general, is not too happy about the suggestion, he eventually agrees. But Trevor almost hits the roof, those 3 little minuscule brain cells he's got, almost volcanoing, whatever, shooting out of his head, when Lon tells him that he wants to visit his brother as Lon, as himself, not Dorothy. So Trevor's majorly tripping in his piss, but he actually, eventually, finally agrees, but with the threat that Lon owes him now. Getting all snippy and sassy and cryptic about it. Imagine Trevor is the actual boyfriend to a woman. He'd be a controlling, abusive monster beast of a human being. Thank goodness Trevor is afraid of women. He does not deserve them. I mean, not that Lon deserves to be in this situation, but Trevor's a piece of crap. So Lon is actually able to visit his deadbeat brother in prison, only to have a cold, awkward, unfriendly encounter anyway. Not worth it. But at least Lon gets to go as Lon, and finally gets to spend some time as himself. I think that's the only reason he wanted to see his brother in prison anyway, because they don't seem close whatsoever. But guess who's waiting outside the whole time to pick Lon up? Our boy Trevor, boyfriend of the year. And because Trevor is the world's most loving, giving, gracious boyfriend, he makes Lon sit in the back of the car. Because the front seat's for good girls. Ew. As well as straightaway demanding that Lon gets dressed back into his Dorothy clothes. Straight away, right then and there. Trevor is such a controlling psycho. He wants this Dorothy girlfriend situation to be his reality so bad that he won't permit even a single moment of a broken facade. Not a single second. Poor Lon, man. He needs to cut his losses and get the hell out of there ASAP. Before it's too late. Find a fix elsewhere. Anywhere else. Oh my. Not worth it, my gosh. Case in point, very soon after, Lon finds a very disturbing library receipt, showing that Trevor has a few overdue library books still on hand, and not your standard Goosebumps or Magic Treehouse type books, but books on gender reclassification, and worse yet, castration rituals. So I wonder what Trevor is planning. Tough one. So if Lon weren't already up Poop Creek without a paddle, he's now about to be completely belly-flopped into a whole ocean of shit. Also without a paddle. And yet, even after seeing that damning, horrific receipt, Lon somehow doesn't immediately sprint for the hills. Staying, even though he now knows Trevor's got something far more sinister hiding up his little sleeve. His little evil sleeve. I guess Lon is just biding his time a bit here? Waiting for the most sensible time for escape, maybe? Hopefully? I don't know. But what I do know is that Lon's fate is not looking all too fine and dandy. Hopefully Lon has a plan or something. And just when you think Lon has accepted his horrible fate, when Trevor heads out to work the next morning, Lon springs into action, tearing through Trevor's drawers and finding that bottle of pills, the bottle of vitamins that Trevor has been feeding him, and the corresponding medical book explaining what those pills actually are and what they're used for. And Lon is absolutely shook, especially as he leafs through some of the pictures in the castration book. And especially when he comes across some of the tools that Trevor has gathered for the procedure. He's got this all planned out. But unfortunately for Lon, Trevor didn't actually go to work after all, tricky little bugger, and arrives home just in time to find Lon scrambling to get that gun from under the toilet lid. But the gun is not there, because it is in Trevor's hand. Fully enraged, he grabs Lon by his luxurious hair, not gonna lie, and drags him into another room of the house, and forces Lon to start laying down a tarp. At gunpoint, of course, by persuasion at gunpoint. Because now that Trevor knows that Lon knows what he's been planning, the surgery has now been expedited. Wasting no time at all, Trevor gets to sterilizing a pair of old scissors, and tosses Lon a syringe that he demands he inject into himself. Hopefully some type of painkiller drug, something. And after Trevor is sure that Lon has injected himself with said syringe, he tosses the scissors towards him, onto the ground, despite just having sterilized them, anyway, and demands that Lon perform the surgery on himself. What? Trevor's giving his all to convince Lon that he doesn't need his guy parts anyway, because he's Dorothy, and Dorothy's a girl, and that the removal won't hurt because it's not a part of him anyway, not actually. It isn't you, Dorothy. Insisting that once his appendage is no longer there and no longer in the way of their love, they can fully belong to each other, forever and ever. Man and wife. And that if Lon or Dorothy does this, Trevor can forever be Lon's landlord, his drug supplier, and lover. Ew. And then, right as Trevor finishes his heartfelt pleadings and insistence, "You gotta do it, Dorothy, for us!" As Lon is still sitting there at gunpoint, the movie ends. Right then and there. The frame freezing on this particular expression of Lon's, as a haunting rendition of the wedding march begins playing, rolling the movie into credits. So the ending is unclear as hell, okay? Open to interpretation. And based on this last freeze frame of Lon's final expression, what decision do you think Lon made? It might be wrong, but my perception of it, my interpretation, is that it seems Lon might have gone through with it. You know? Is that just me? After hearing Trevor make all those promises and assurances that Lon will have a roof over his head forevermore, and most importantly, a constant, continuous drug supply, what else could Lon ever want in life, right? I really hope he didn't go with that decision, but I feel like he would. I feel like he was about to. But let me know what you guys think he decided, because I don't know, I think I know. And isn't this movie just kind of horrible, right? Pretty nasty, horrific, gritty and grimy and gross. And I don't know if it makes it better or worse that the guy who played Lon wrote, directed, and edited this movie. I don't know what that even says. I don't know how to feel about that. But what you probably will feel by the end of this movie is a little grossed out, probably a little violated. But overall, it's just kind of a scummy, grimy, kind of type movie. Like, you kind of feel you need to take a shower afterwards. I kind of hated every second of it. Maybe it's just me. Probably not. And the whole time I was just kind of like, when it kept going from bad to worse. So yeah, I really don't recommend this movie. Take it from your mother here. Skip out on this one. Give this one a pass. Go watch something fun and wholesome and upbeat, like, I don't know, Adventure Time or SpongeBob. Because this movie ain't it. What the hell? But messed up movies are our forte, okay? It's who we are. We just gotta fight our way through them. So I hope this movie has not ruined your day or your week. And with that, I shall see you all next week.